yes, I slow it down. Can tell yours if you want it. Take the ride, 'cause those ups and those downs is what makes it worth it.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Nitty Gritty Talk. We're on episode 7 already. I would be further along, but the last 2 weeks I decided to post more of like day in the life or like more vlog style videos, which I plan to keep posting those as well because I feel like they're just as important. I posted a rest day vlog, and then I posted an Alpha Elite review log, which I was very happy to do an Alpha Elite review video because even though I am a tomboy, I love the outdoors, I love to work out, all that stuff, I am still such a girly girl at heart. Honestly, I've been this way my whole life because I grew up on a farm. I rode horses, I did barrel racing, but I still loved fashion. This actually just reminded me of something. When I was really young, I had to be like a toddler at this age, but I would dress up with a boa, so like a feathered one, and then my mom had these like little plastic heels, and I would wear those and I would march around the kitchen and I would be dancing to the radio. Actually, no, it wasn't a radio. It was a CD, because back then when you're playing a CD, like if you're walking or like dancing too hard and you're pounding on the floor, it would like make the CD scratch. And I remember I would always do that because my dancing was equivalent to just like marching my feet, and it would just like stop and scratch the music. But even back then, for being a little girl, I've always loved fashion. I've always been a girly girl at heart. So being able to now do like clothing reviews, I love it. Which, speaking of that, I might be doing another one soon. Because RIP, I mean, literally, rip. I ripped my pants. Thank God. Like, I cannot say this enough. Thank God I did not rip my pants in the gym. That would have been so embarrassing. I would have had to change gyms. I would have had to like shut off all of my social media. It would have been a disaster. Okay, I'm being a little over dramatic on that, but it would have been embarrassing nonetheless. I was putting on my leggings for the day, pulling them up, and I hear just like a little noise. And at first I went into like doubt mode. I was like, oh no, that wasn't a rip. I'm fine. And like part of me didn't want to turn around and look because I didn't want my leggings to be ripped, because this was my favorite pair. This was my black Amplify Alpha Elite leggings. I think this was my first Alpha Elite leggings that I've ever gotten. And so, I've had these for years. So it was time for me to get a new pair. Like I wore these probably 1 to 2 times a week, and if I've had them for 5 years, do the math, that's a lot of wears. So I'm not mad that it ripped. Like, it was gonna happen, but it is a sad day. So anyway, I mustered up enough courage, I turned around, and there was a hole right by my hole. So thank God I did look, because going to the gym with that would have been embarrassing, especially because it was a leg day. So I would have been doing RDLs in squats, and that hole, both of the holes would have been flashing everyone. But yeah, so I need to go order some new leggings. If I get some other clothes, maybe I'll do a review, but it was a sad day nonetheless. But speaking of being eager, I am very eager to start my 2024 prep. So I am 2 weeks in, everything is going smooth, which if I'm only 2 weeks in, everything should be going smooth at this point. But when you are preparing for a show, there are a lot of little parts that go into it. And this is where a lot of competitors start to get very anxious, especially if you are a new competitor. It's the fear of not knowing what you don't know. Being a very visual person, I love to make timelines, I love to make checklists, so that's exactly what I did. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. With this, you are going to be able to be fully prepared. You're going to have everything that you need, and it's just going to make show day as relaxing as possible. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. Which, by the way, real quick, I want to talk about my coffee. I am a whore for an espresso coffee. That's probably not the right term to use, but I'm in love with my Nespresso. And I think I have finally found the best way to make it from home. So we've had the Nespresso for a while now. I think we got it around Christmas. No, it was before that. I don't know. It doesn't matter. We've had it for a while. And so I've used a lot of different types of pods. We've tried like the regular coffee pods, we tried the iced coffee pods, and we are now on to double espresso pods, and I think that is the best because it can simulate a latte that you get at like a regular coffee shop. Very darn close, if not pretty much the exact same. So real quick, how I make my coffee on prep, and I mean I even make it this way off of prep too. I'll brew up a double shot of espresso, put it in the cup with a little bit of ice, and then I have the Tortiani sugar-free coffee syrups. I love the hazelnut, so I'll put 2 pumps of that in there, and then I'll pour some almond milk. A serving of almond milk is like 30 calories, and then I'll put a dash of cinnamon. So I mean, for this whole coffee, 30 calories, it's literally perfect for prep or just like any time of the year. So anyway, that's my coffee, but let's focus on the checklist. So, before you start prep, you want to reach out to a coach. So, when you start prep, you might think that you need a 16-week prep, but it's really good to reach out to a coach so you can make sure that you're being set up as best as possible and you have an appropriate length for prep. So that coach is going to be able to evaluate your metabolism, make sure that you're eating enough beforehand so your prep's going to be successful, make sure that you have enough muscle mass on you, and then also they'll be able to give you a realistic timeline of how long a prep should be for you. So in that way, when you step on stage, you're actually going to look your best because you might want a 16-week prep, but you might need a 20-week prep. And it's better to take those extra couple of weeks and actually look your best than try to rush on stage. So a couple months before you start wanting to do prep, reach out to a coach, get an official game plan for you. Now, when you actually do start prep, this is where all of the fun things start to come into play. So the first thing I want you ladies to do is to go out and buy yourself some heels. Now, buy yourself some good heels. When you're doing a competition prep, it honestly gets expensive. There's a lot of things that you have to buy. It's not cheap by any means. But there are things that it is worth putting the extra money towards so you can actually get good quality items. And heels being one of the biggest ones. I made this mistake when I first started competing, and I am here to tell you so you don't make the same mistake. So, Amazon, that's the first place everyone thinks of. And you can buy clear heels off of Amazon for $40, $50. But they are going to be the shittiest shoes you have ever put on. And if you were trying to do a posing routine and look elegant, you do not want heels that are like daggers stabbing into your feet. And if your feet start bleeding on stage, that ain't going to look too good. And that has actually happened to me on my first show. The plastic on those heels are so stiff, there's no flexibility to them, that it just cuts straight into your skin. You get blisters, you start bleeding. It is agony, and you want to get off stage as soon as possible so you can take those shoes off, and that is not what you need. And plus, these are the shoes that you're going to be wearing when you're practicing your posing. And if your feet are in an extreme amount of pain, it's going to make posing so much harder. And posing is going to be such a huge part of looking good on stage. So, spend a little extra money, go to the shoe fairy, get some good quality shoes. I have bought a pair from the Shoe Fairy, and I've had them for a couple of years, and I absolutely love them. They are well worth the money spent. Even if you're not sure if you're going to be competing for a long time, I still recommend getting the Shoe Fairy because you can get a pair that doesn't have like all the bling on them. Just get like a solid plastic pair, and then you can wear them through like your day-to-day life. Like you can wear them on a date night, you can wear them casually, like whatever. Like it's not like you're only going to wear them once. But the plastic, super flexible. The sole of the shoe has a lot of good padding, and honestly, just like shape-wise, they look a lot better too. Now, when it comes to shoes, there's two different types that you can get. You can get the type that has like the strap that you actually like strap yourself in. And then there's the type where you just like slip your foot in. A lot of people think that they need the strap because it's going to like secure them in more. But honestly, it doesn't. I would almost prefer the strapless type because you're able to get in and out of them so much quicker. Because you're going to be backstage for a while, and you're not going to want to wear those heels the entire time. So it's good to have the ability to slip in and out of those shoes super quick. So once you get those shoes, start posing right away. The more time you have to pose, just the better it's going to be for you. So kind of the same thing with like getting an actual prep coach. I would recommend to get a posing coach. That way you can make sure that you're posing the right things. Because there's nothing worse than practicing a lot, but then accidentally practicing the wrong things. Now, when you do practice your posing, I don't know who started this, but just don't wear your socks. You're not going to be able to wear your socks on stage, so you might as well get used to your shoes now without socks. Now, one thing that is optional is a posing suit. If you are a brand new competitor and you are debating if this is something that you're going to do long term and you're trying to save some money, then you can easily save some cash and not get a posing suit. But a posing suit does have its benefits. So a posing suit is going to be different than a regular swimsuit. If you look at a regular swimsuit, more specifically the bottoms, it is just kind of like a sheet of fabric slapped on your butt. There's not a lot of like favors going on there, and it covers up quite a bit. Versus if you look at a posing suit, it's going to be cut in a very specific way that it makes the glutes look rounder. It's showing off certain areas. It simulates what a competition suit is going to look like. I really like wearing a posing suit because when I'm taking my progress photos every single week, it just helps give you a better idea of what you're going to look like on stage. Posing suits can be anywhere from like $70 to $100 plus bucks. If you go with like the huge name brand companies, that's when you're going to be getting to like $100, $150, which I think is outrageous for a posing suit. I get my posing suits from Competition Suit Shop that you can get a lot cheaper. They have a lot of different like patterns, and it's going to be tailored to you. So that's a huge positive. If you're just getting a regular swimsuit, it's small, medium, large, and you just got to pick what works best. versus a posing suit, it's going to be tailored to you. So you're going to take your measurements and you're going to send it off to the company, and then they will make that suit specifically for you. So like I said before, it's going to complement your body so much better. Now, you don't have to wear this suit when you're posing all the time. You can still pose in your leggings, in your sports bra. That's totally fine. But I really like to have it for my check-in photos at least. Now, fast forwarding to 7 to 8-ish weeks out, that's when you want to get your actual competition suit. So the one that's blinged out, the one that like everyone is super excited for. And this is honestly like my favorite part of competing. I love to pick out my competition suit. I've unfortunately had to get a new suit every time I have competed because I made a couple mistakes. So hopefully you can learn from these mistakes and only have to buy one suit, because competition suits, they're not cheap. It can be anywhere from like $300 to like $600, $700. Again, this is an area that you don't want to go super cheap on, but you also don't have to go super expensive on. So again, I use the company Competition Suit Shop. I've used Muscle Dazzle in the past. They're both great options, and they're both very affordable. For a bikini, it's going to be around that $300 mark, and they're still perfectly fine quality. Again, it's going to be customized to you, so you're just going to give them your measurements, and they will tailor it to what you give them. Now, that's a reason why I recommend to wait 7 to 8 weeks out before you get your competition suit. Because if you have to lose a decent amount to step on stage, so like 15 pounds plus, you don't really know how big you're going to be on stage. So you preferably want to get a little bit lean first, so then that way you can give the competition company a little bit more accurate measurements. Because if I would give the competition company my measurements when I first start prep and I have 25 pounds to lose, it's going to be really tough for them to figure out what freaking size they're supposed to give you. So if you can wait to that 7 to 8 week mark, it just gives them a little bit of a better idea. And then it's going to help you out because you're going to more likely have a suit that fits you better when you step on stage. 7 to 8 weeks is like the sweet spot because it is going to take a couple weeks for them to make the suit and send it out to you. Typically, they can get it done within like 5 weeks, but it's good to have a couple extra buffer weeks just in case if you get it and there's anything wrong with it and you need to get it fixed. Or God forbid, if there's any like shipping delays or just if there's any issues, it's good to have those buffer weeks. I've worked with a couple companies before where I have received the suit and the cut just wasn't good. The cut in like the crotch was like way too wide and it was like starting to wrinkle the front. So I actually had to reach out to them and I ended up sending them the bottoms back. They fixed it and then they sent it back to me. And that was an exact scenario where like, thank God I had a couple extra buffer weeks because I was able to get the suit fixed and then still have it for stage. Now, when you are picking out a suit, the reason why this is fun, not just because you get to pick out like the color, but you get to fully customize it to you. So like the cut, the connectors, all of that you get to customize. So I guess before I start hopping too far ahead, let's talk about colors. So you want to pick a color that is obviously going to complement you. So very popular colors that people go with are going to be the reds, the blues, the greens, sometimes purples and pinks. Those are a little bit more iffy. You really want to stay away from yellows and oranges just because you are going to be very tan on stage and you don't want it to blend in and you don't want to look like an Oompa Loompa. Whatever colors you're wearing, you want it to pull out in contrast from your tan. Versus if your tan is already a little bit orange, you don't want to put more orange on top of it and pull out that color. You know what I mean? So you want to make sure it looks good. You also don't want to get too light of a color and you don't want to get too dark of a color. You want to get that nice like sweet spot in the middle. If you go too light, it can just look washed out and you don't have as much of a contrast. If you go too dark, then it just blends in with your tan and it doesn't have that contrast. So avoiding like blacks, avoiding like super, super deep blues, super, super deep reds, you know, picking more to like those mid to like brighter colors are going to be best for you. Like I said before, I'm a very visual person, so I will take it a step further and like take my check-in photos and then take like a screenshot of the bikini that I'm thinking about buying and like crop out the bikini and like overlay it on my check-in photos so I can actually see what that bikini looks like on my body. That might be like a little excessive and like weird, but that's how I make sure that I pick the best colors for me. Another thing is going to be the connectors. Now, anytime you are ordering a suit, my best tip of advice, hold on, some of that cinnamon, ooh, got caught in my throat. It's been like sitting on the top of the coffee the whole time, and now that I've drank down, I'm drinking just like straight cinnamon. Whew, okay, what was I saying? Yes, suit connectors. So anytime you are ordering a suit, I always recommend go look at the top level bikini competitors and see what they're wearing. Whatever color, whatever style they are wearing, more than likely are things that are in. And that is going to help avoid you buying suits that don't look good. Because there are going to be old styles available on the sites. You just want to make sure you're not ordering those old styles. And connectors is a big giveaway of like how dated your suit is. So back in like 2016, you know, around that range, all the craze was those big like, keep hitting this today, big like dangly connectors, like the 3 tiers. It looks like a freaking like chandelier hanging from your hip. If you have that on stage now, you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. That is very dated. What's in currently is just one thin strap of, you know, bedazzling. Same thing up here, just a thin strap of bedazzling. When it comes to the connector in between, you can go with the same thing, just a thin strap. If you want one big one, you know, you can get away with that. But I wouldn't go anything too crazy and too extravagant for the connectors. Yes, you want your suit to pop on stage, but you don't want it to become a distraction either. So just keep that in mind. When it comes to suit cut, more specifically the coverage for the back. Now, this is going to greatly vary depending on your conditioning level. Typically, there is around like 4 options, but usually like 3 options are going to be the most popular, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So there's the micro cut, which is like the tiniest one. That's like pretty much a thong at that point. And then there's what they call usually like a pro cut, and then there's like a moderate cut. If you are a new competitor and you're might not be like truly stage lean, I would always recommend to go with the moderate cut. That way it's covering up just a little bit more, but it's still showing enough where it doesn't look like a swimsuit bottom. It doesn't look like you're wearing a diaper on stage. Just because if you are not conditioned and you have a very, very small bottom, it's going to be more obvious that you're not conditioned. Now, if you know that you are going to be able to get truly stage lean or very close to that point, then I would recommend going with that pro cut. That's always just a nice, safe cut. If you are a tinier person and you're going to be very, very lean, that's when you can start kind of pushing the edge and maybe going with the micro pro cut. I'm personally just not much of a fan of it, even when the like really big pros on stage wear that small micro cut. I just don't think it looks the best. It can really push the line sometimes of looking just a little too skimpy. But again, that's going to be your personal preference. I always just play it safe and just go with that pro cut. But then after that, we have the top, the cups. There's going to be a molded cup, and then there's going to be a non-molded cup. I mean, I don't really know what else to call it. But it's going to be more like a traditional swimsuit where it's not molded. If you are from the Itty Bitty Titty Committee, so myself, I highly recommend getting the molded cups because that's just going to help give you some more lift. It's going to give you some more padding. It's just going to help you out in that department. If you already have a very big chest, you can get away with like a regular type of top just because you're already naturally going to be filling it out. Now, this is also where it gets interesting. If you are also very, very flat-chested, so meaning when you're stage lean, you have like an A cup or something very small, sometimes getting that molded cup will actually look weird because if you're not able to fill out that molded cup just a little bit, it's going to start gapping. So in that case, you would be better off getting a regular suit top and just like stuffing the shit out of it. But usually that's more on a rare case. Usually, like, yes, when you go through prep, like you lose some of your boobs. It's very unfortunate, but it's true. But hopefully you'll still have just like a little bit there where you can still get that molded cup and have just a little bit to fill it out. So, and I mean, you don't need much. You could have a B cup and you would be totally fine with the molded cup. But moving on, 4 weeks out, now we are looking into all of the other little items. So, hair extensions, unless you have beautiful, long, full hair, I would recommend to get hair extensions. Having a full head of hair honestly just looks a lot more appealing on stage, and you can get hair extensions for hella freaking cheap off of Amazon. They are like $30 and they surprisingly look legit. It doesn't need to be anything crazy fancy. I just get the clip-in extensions, and then that way I wear them when they're on stage, and then when I'm off of stage, I don't have to worry about it. I've also had them and wore them several times, and they're still in good condition. I mean, heck, if I even wore them once for $30, it's not bad. But I mean, you could easily wear them for a whole season of competing, if not like multiple seasons. Another thing is going to be stage jewelry. So you're going to want dangly earrings. You're going to want some bracelets, maybe some rings. If you get rings, all I want to say is be careful because it is very easy to get them caught on your hair, especially in your posing routine. If your posing routine has like any hair flips or like any hair movements, I have seen people go and do that and then their hands stuck in their hair, and then you're having like an oh shit moment on stage, because there would be nothing worse than ripping out a hair extension when you're in front of everyone. So for me, just being like so paranoid about that, I only wear rings on the hand that I'm not doing anything with my hair. That, or I just won't wear any rings at all, and you're totally fine. You can get super cheap stage jewelry off of Amazon. This is one thing that you can get on Amazon and be totally fine. I recommend getting just like the normal like cuff, just couple rows of just straight jewels. Don't get anything crazy and too elaborate. Don't get anything that's like hanging from your wrist. Just get a couple row of just solid jewels. You can do it on both hand or one hand, and then you're fine. Same thing with the earrings. Get something that's dangly. Don't go like crazy overboard. It shouldn't be like sitting on your shoulders. It should just be there. And then, like I said, this is when you want to start getting your makeup. So going to Ulta, Sephora, wherever, and picking out whatever makeup you need. This will also be a good time for you to start practicing your stage makeup. I highly recommend to do makeup yourself, just because scheduling a time to get your hair and makeup done, you're working on someone else's schedule. And you don't want to run into the issue of getting behind and then being late to step on stage or missing your call time. I mean, it honestly doesn't have to be that extravagant. With you being on stage, the judges are so far away, they're not going to be able to see your eyeshadow and be like, I think her wing eyeliner's off a little bit. Like, no, they're not going to see. So as long as you can get something close, you're fine. Really, the biggest thing is the hair. I mean, worst case scenario too, if you're absolutely terrible with hair, just straighten your hair, straighten your extensions, and then just kind of tease it and poof it up a little bit so you got some volume and you're totally fine. Otherwise, just curl it. I always suggest curling it if you can, just because it's going to give you some more volume. But like I said, you don't need to do anything like extravagant with it. Other than that, other little things that you're going to want to get is going to be a black robe. That's going to be good for when you are backstage. You can cover up so you're not just walking around in your bikini all day. A robe is something that you can get on and off super quick. Black, because you are going to be having a super dark tan on you and you don't want to be getting your tan on whatever clothing you're putting on. I like to have a silk robe just because it is going to be a lot lighter. You're not going to be sweating, because that's the last thing you want to do. You do not want to sweat with your tan on, because then it's going to start streaking. Which then that brings me to another thing to bring, and that is a small mini fan. My first show, I realized that I am a nervous sweater, and I had to stand in front of the fan that the tanning company brought, because otherwise I would start streaking. So ever since then, I always just bring myself a mini fan so I don't have to worry about that. You also are going to want to bring loose black clothing. This is going to come in handy the day before when you first get your tan. So wearing long, loose black clothing is going to make sure that, one, nothing is getting on you and you're not getting on anything else. You also want to get black sheets, because you're going to have to go to sleep eventually and you don't want to get your tan on the sheets. Especially if you are staying at a hotel, you do not want to have to pay to replace their sheets. So bring a black fitted sheet, and then bring a black blanket or something that you can cover up with at night. And pillows too, just to like really cover everything. Sandals. Don't forget that. That is something that I forgot on my first competition. I only brought tennis shoes. And after you get tanned, putting on tennis shoes is not a smart thing to do. We had to quickly run to Walmart and buy like cheap-ass flip-flops. Luckily, there was one close by. Otherwise, just make sure that you have hairspray, a brush, pump-up bands. Typically backstage, there will be some type of equipment where you can pump up, but one, you don't know if other people are going to be hogging it, and two, sometimes there's really limited resources, so it's just easy to bring a couple bands with you, so that way you know for sure you're going to have some to pump up with. And then also bikini glue. So all the times that I have tanned at a show with a company, they always have bikini glue. But I always bring some just in case. Bikini glue is, I mean, what it really sounds like. It's glue to glue your bikini down to make sure it's not going anywhere. Because that bikini is going to be tiny. And if it slides in a wrong way, you don't want to be flashing people on stage. So bikini glue, that is something that you can buy off of Amazon too. It's super cheap. That way you can just glue your top down and then glue your bottoms down as well. But moving on, after that, 2 to 3 weeks out, this is when you are going to start registering for your show. I know that sounds weird, but you never know what's going to happen during your prep. You could get sick, you could get injured, something could happen to a family member, like something could happen that it throws your prep off of track, and you don't want to commit to a show, pay for it, and then not be able to use it. So shows are going to have open registration usually until like the last week. So if you register for your show 2 to 3 weeks out, you're going to be totally fine. And at least you know 100% for sure you're going to be able to do that show. Because there's nothing worse than being out a couple $100s. At the same time, you're going to purchase your federation card. So that is an NPC card, an OCB card, whatever federation you're competing in, you have to buy their card. That card is what allows you to enter and register for the show. It's kind of stupid, but it's the way that the industry makes more money. The actual federation makes money from you buying the card, and that's just a one-time purchase for the whole entire, I believe it's calendar year. And then you registering for the show and paying for that is how the promoter makes money. So it's unfortunate, but that is what it is. If you are competing in a natural show, you will also have to pay for a polygraph test. So basically a lie detector test to make sure that you are 100% natural like you claim to be. Which that's always such a weird thing to go through. I would have never have thought that I would have had to do a polygraph test in my life. And even though, like, you know you are natural and you have never taken anything, it's still so nerve-wracking going into that test because in your mind, you're, like, thinking about everything you've ever taken before. You're like, oh my God, did this pre-workout, like, accidentally have something in it? Like, am I not natural and I don't know? Your mind, like, starts playing games on you. Another thing is going to be to schedule your tan. This is another thing that I highly suggest to not cut corners on. My first show, I thought that it would be a good idea to tan myself because I was like, oh, I'm a DIY queen. Like, I know how to do things. If you have not done a bodybuilding show before, you do not know how insanely dark you have to get. And it's just a lot easier to pay someone to tan you, so that way you can make sure that you look the exact same as everyone else on stage. Because if you are not the same shade or even the same color, and all those girls are lined up beside you, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. So, get the vendor tanning. It's usually around like $100, but it is well worth it. Next thing is going to be the hotel. If you are traveling, it's nice to get the hotel because you have a place to stay the night before, because the day before the show is when you're going to have to show up and register for it, and then you usually have the show the following morning. I mean, really technically it starts in the morning, but it goes all throughout the day. If you are local, some people still like to get a hotel because, like I said, it's going to be all throughout the day. So instead of just kind of like wandering around or like sitting in the crowd, sometimes it's nice to have a room to go back to, especially if you are done competing. You can go and like wash off your tan because you're going to be like super sticky. Last thing is going to be plane tickets. Again, typically if you are looking for plane tickets, it's cheaper to schedule ahead of time, but like I said, you never know what's going to happen in your prep, and you don't want to schedule plane tickets and then have to cancel your prep and be out that money. So if you do get plane tickets ahead of time, at least get insurance on it. So then that way you can get a refund back just in case you have to cancel or move your show. I have learned this the hard way too. My last prep that I tried to do, I had to unexpectedly stop, and I was out money for plane tickets. So yes, just buy the insurance. It's worth the extra $30-$40. And then we are down to the week of the show. The week of the show, there shouldn't be much for you to do. You need to go get your nails done, and when it comes a couple days out from the show, just talk to your coach and get a game plan of what types of foods you need and what you should be bringing for the show. Typically for show day, it's not going to be a lot of protein. It's going to be more carb-based, maybe a little bit of fats. But again, talk to your coach so then you know exactly how much food to bring for you that day. I have been talking for a while and my throat is starting to hurt. Oof, over an hour. This is going to be a long episode. But that is everything that you need for your show day. I will put these infographics up on the screen one more time so that way you guys can screenshot and have it for your use. If you really like, gosh, this is like the 5th time I've hit my microphone today. If you really like information like this, I would highly recommend to join my free Facebook group. It's called How to Act Like a Pro for First-Time Bikini Competitors. All of this information is on there plus more. So like I said, it's a free group. It doesn't hurt to join. And just the more you know, the more prepared you're going to be for stage. But if you guys have any questions or any topics you want me to talk about next time, comment it down below. Otherwise, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe, like this video, and I will chat with you guys later. Bye.
Listen to me as I